Let's see. We are full ticks across the board. We are live, Steve.
Thumbs up. We are live.
Yeah, we are alive and we are live.
All good things. It's nice to be alive, and it's nice to be live in this day and age of virtually connecting with people. So for those of you that are signing on or will be watching this later on a record as it's playing through, welcome. Yep. How are you?
Yeah, g'day.
Welcome to the live that we're having today. My name is Steve Rogers. I'm from San Diego, California, where I'm zooming in at. Not zooming, I guess I'm StreamYarding.
Streaming.
Streaming in. My friend Dave.
Streaming from Steve.
from the U.S. All the way over to Australia, to the west side of Australia, with my friend Dave Clare. So welcome to Dave. And Dave and I are going to finish up some sessions today. If you've been following us all along, this is our third session. We had a few gaps in between for some stub toes on my end with some delays due to a little pesky thing like coronavirus that I got, just kind of getting through that. Little pesky little thing like that. And then Dave's moved to his new kingdom in his new office as well.
Headquarters
as well. But today will be a third session that we will be wrapping up. We'll be kind of recapping some of the things we did in the first two sessions and getting to the action plans in this third session. But the topics have been around passion, power, productivity, and also the bottom line, actually profit. Many of us that are on this call are entrepreneurs or business owners or leaders. And at the end of the day, we are typically trying to run businesses to have more profit, to grow, and to be more abundant in scale. But if you're not having the passion and the purpose and the power to make all that happen, then a lot of times it becomes pretty empty and it doesn't become fulfilling. So we are going to kind of wrap all this in a nice bow today. We've got till 10 before the hour. So we're going to crunch all this into a 50-minute session today. And we'll do a recap. So Dave, what did you want to chime in on before we do our recap there?
Firstly, like the first two sessions were really powerful. It's great to have had the opportunity to work with you through this, mate. So thank you. This was your brainchild. So I got to give kudos to you. You reached out to me and said, Dave, I want to do this thing. I'd love you to join me. And I'm like, that was very a privilege to be able to hang out with you and do these sessions, mate. So before I get a chance to forget at the very end, you had me at hello. And
likewise.
But it's just awesome to be able to share, down here in Australia. So as a Canadian drinking his Tim Hortons coffee in Australia, West Australia, but to bring someone of your, thought process, thought leadership, experience, wisdom to an Australian audience, and then vice versa. Mate, thank you so much for making this possible.
Well, you're welcome. Well, I think it's another example of no matter where we are in the world, whether in the U.S., you're in Australia, you're in London, you're in South Africa, you're in China. All of us have very common things as human beings. And I think what's cool about these streaming sessions is it really brings together that human condition, whether it's in your business or your personal life, and so it's really nice to have these conversations. Even you have a funny little accent there where you're from. We have the same common desires and beliefs, and we think so much alike. And I'm sure people that will be streaming in and chiming in as well have similar ideas or thoughts. And it'd be great to hear from anybody on the stream as we go through questions, thoughts, ideas to help input this. That we, again, are much more together and common than we are different in the world that we all live on right now.
Yeah, but this is also, I think, a lot of people, and with great empathy as always, that are challenged by what's been happening over the past 12 months or so. And totally respect that. But, we wouldn't be doing this if that hadn't happened.
True.
You're not connected and stuff, and we would have stayed friends over Facebook or whatever, or any of the social media platforms. We would have talked back and forth a few things. But the ability for us to collaborate, which always existed, right? It always existed, but we would never have embraced it like we have, because this has been forced and thrust upon a lot of us. And we may have embraced it years down the track or something like that, or we'll come over to San Diego, or you finally drag your American ass down here to Australia, and we get you to again and get you back out on stage again. But now we're doing this, and we wouldn't have done this if it hadn't have been for that. So, if anything from any of these sessions about moving forward with power, passion, and purpose into 2021, I would challenge everybody from a mindset point of view, from where we were. You can either be a victim or a victor. This is happening to me, or this is happening for me. And it's okay to be in victim mode for a very short window of time and understand you're human, but then move into that victor mode and say, this is happening for me. If this is happening for me, what would I do with it? How could I find a way through or around it?
Yeah,
And I think
absolutely.
it's the greatest sense of, we talk about power, like getting that strength, and where do you find that? So,
Well,
mate,
and that's a great point. I mean, in this power, I mean, Mother Nature and God or universe or whatever you might want to term it in your own terminology. Obviously, this coronavirus and this epidemic has been ugly and nasty and painful and caused death, and all of that stuff that it's done is all real and true. And it's done much of what you just said. It has forced change and much positive change on many ways. And we did talk about this on a few other sessions, but you're right. We may not have fueled this along nearly as quickly as we had this has not happened. And the old phrase of no pressure, no diamond. So a little bit of this pressure of having us to conform and to adapt and change is allowing both of us to get out of our own comfort zones and to connect further. So hopefully some of you on the stream today will be doing the same in your own audiences and your own world, whether you're in corporate America, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a homemaker, whether you're a solo entrepreneur or a serial entrepreneur, whatever you might be. Again, all of these messages we're going to be covering today are universal in between all of those mixes, because this is about having a life plan and a business plan that's actionable, that is creating more of that power and passion and purpose in your life. So we were also talking right before we got on here about the Secret. Many of you maybe remember that book, that movie, that phenomenon many, many years ago called The Secret. And I happened to have been on Netflix last night, and I was buzzing around movies, and I always like to look at documentaries or educational stuff or motivational stuff. And I saw this current one that just came out this last year, and it's like, the reiteration of the current modern day after The Secret kind of thing. And I thought, I wonder what that is. And I flipped through it, and my friend John Asseroff, who I know really well, who is in The Secret, was one of the first windows that popped up, and he was talking, and he was in Ranch Santa Fe, not too far from where I live. And he and Bob Proctor and different people that were in the original film were talking about that. It was amazing what a phenomenon that was when it came out 15 or 18 years ago. But it left people thinking that it was just about the power of thought and the power and law of attraction and the power of thinking about it, and things will come to you. Well, that's only one piece of the formula, and the guy Dave and I are talking about. It really is the next steps of materializing that through your own manifestation of energy. And so it was kind of funny that Dave, you had some thoughts about that as well earlier.
Yeah, and the secret of the secret, which people missed, is that the law of attraction only works when you use the last 6 letters. So what are the last 6 letters of the law of attraction?
Boom, 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 boom. Action.
Right. So and this is like, we can sit there, and we want to move forward. It's great. You can think of and manifest all these wonderful things in your life. I get that. And I'm not saying that that's not possible, but I'm saying either it accelerates it, or it's even more possible or more probable when you start taking action towards it as well. You can't just say, give it to me, and not show the universe that you're willing to do what it takes to go and bring that into your life. You can't just say, universe, give to me. Because what the universe does, actually, is, we know, if we say, give me strength, what does the universe give you? Does it give you strength? No, it gives you challenges so you can become strong. Right? But if you don't step out and face those challenges, you don't get strength. Right? So if you want lots of money, what it does is it presents you with opportunities to go and do things to make money, and it doesn't give you money. Everyone wants to manifest, and the first thing everyone wants to manifest is a brand new house or a car. But if you're not willing to do the things that it would take, that the universe says, okay, you want all that, I'll show you how to get it, but you got to do the work.
Right.
Because the last 6 letters of the law of attraction are the most important ones in the whole thing.
Taking action, absolutely, no question about that. And the action piece is, let's jump into and talk to some of that about what do you do to take action. So it's great having this big dream and this big desire, which I think we were all put here on this planet to probably be bigger, grander, and more expressed than we are as our soul's purpose and condition right now. I would venture to guess that anybody, including Dave and I in this call, and anyone else zooming in or listening in or streaming in, are probably at a point that you even know that there's more within inside of you that can be created or done, and there's probably a purpose for you that you have maybe not yet maximized. And I believe that for myself. And that's that. Okay, what is that? How do I clarify that? And one of the things I think The Secret did really cool, that it made mainstream getting and realizing that word you just used, universe, or power, or outside of ourselves. There is this magical power outside of ourselves that we have to co-create with. And in that co-creation, you have to get really clear, really specific, very detailed, and still have your end plan about what you want in your vision or dream. But then it's taking those bite-sized steps out of each and every action item so that you understand how it's broken down into how you would create those things. Let me just share my screen real quick and we can do some recap and see maybe how that might apply to some of these things. So last time we were talking about, I don't know if you can see my screen there, Dave, or not.
I'll bring it up right now. I'll just add it into the stream here with all this fancy technology. There we go. It's good. It's there, Steve.
So in these action items that we were talking about just a few minutes ago, we brought these wheels up the last time and said, in your life right now, the 9 environments of you, whether it's spirituality, your physical, your financial, your relationships, body, this on the left here is that wheel that represents those 9 environments that all of us have as human beings and spiritual beings. And on the right, which is where we mostly focus on, is this business core. Then in our businesses, again, whether you're a corporate executive, a manager, an employee, or an entrepreneur, all companies have these things in those businesses that make up that business: marketing, sales, customer service, etc. So these action items that Dave is referencing in the laws of attraction or just in your own passion or power or purpose, how do we take action steps in these key items that then move us forward to create what it is we said that we want? So Dave, I know you take your people through a process of, manifesting from, live conversation and the power of your conversation and thought. Let's talk about how do you get from here to there? Because we were using an analogy of when people used to go to malls or stores, you have that big map, or if you're at Disneyland and it says you are here and you want to get over here, you have to first know where you're at before you can get here. So let's maybe talk of those wheels of life and business, the process that you go through. And then once you know what that looks like, the map, okay, here's the map. What we were going to focus a lot on today was about the after accountability of that plan. So why don't I have you just maybe jump into how do you create first?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So actually I was just doing this with some clients last night. They're at the stage, so they're looking at their organization and where it's going into the future, right? And so this, I'll do it from an organizational level, but then I'll bring in the human element back into it anyway, because it will only be what it'll be if they become what they need to become, right? So it's sort of tied in for that. So since it's about business and life, so as an organization, like to create their strategy, they know where they are today. I always look at even your business, Steve. Is your business, like, how long have you been in this business now, in your Alchemy Advisors and all that?
It's been 5 years now.
5 years. So if you went back 5 years ago, is the business that you started 5 years ago the same business that you have today?
No, it's not the same. Luckily, I have some of the same clients that I had when I started, but the business itself has evolved and shifted, and new demands have been put on the business that didn't exist 5 years ago.
And so in the next 5 years, are you going to be the same business that you are today?
Yeah, no, already in the process of reshaping that and being proactive in it. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Because so if you go to the business that you were basically, I guess, 5 years ago, it's evolved to what it is today. And in the next 5 years, it's going to evolve again, right? Because business is a series of evolutions. Okay, so if from anyone looking at this, when we identified where you are and where you want to be, well, where you want to be is the next evolution of you or your business. So when I was working with these clients last night, we worked out, based on their vision of the world that they see 10 or 20 years from now, who do they need to start becoming to start creating that world, right? So who do they need to become to start creating that world that they see? And so we mapped out what their business needed to become. And once we are clear on that, they want to go instantly. Just want to go, okay, well, how are we going to do that? And because the mind just wants to go, how to. That's okay, but wait a second. So if this is what the business needs to become, this is the evolution of the business. Well, what is the evolution of you as individuals then? Because you're not the leader. If you look at who the leaders you are today, you're leading the business you have today. If you want to lead that business, do you think the leaders that you are today are the same way you need to lead this business? And like, oh, no, right. So who do you need to become then? What kind of leader would lead this business that you've just identified, who you want to become? So our strategy in the next 3 years is to become this business. And then the only way to do that is to say, well, who do you need to become then in order to do that? Because from an evolution point of view, the more the leaders evolve, the more the business can evolve, which means like the team can evolve. If you're creating capacity as leaders, as you evolve, you create capacity for your team to come along on that journey and more space. Therefore, the business can evolve, and our clients deserve that if we want to stay relevant in the hearts and minds of those people we choose to serve. So first thing is we have to look at actually our strategy. Whenever you're strategizing something, even for your own life, it's not about how much money do I want to make, or even in business, what's one of the common denominators that businesses for the past 100 years have done to determine their strategy, Steve?
Well, they've looked at sales, market share, number of units.
How much market share do we want to have? How much profitability we want to have? Whatever. Instead of saying, well, who do we need to become to stay relevant in the hearts and minds of the people we choose to serve, and understanding that in that market share, profitability will be inputs or objectives that need to be accomplished, but that's not the end game. The end game is to become the organization that's going to stay relevant in the hearts and minds of the people that you choose to serve. The end game for you is to become the leader who will do that, because we've talked about this before in the goal setting process, right? That our goals, it's not so much about the attainment of the goals, it's about who you become in the attainment of the goals, right? So that when you do the wheel of life and you said, oh, I'm a 5 in health, and it's about, oh, I want to be a 10 because I want to be like Greek Adonis and I want to be ripped. Okay, well, you know what? It's great that you might achieve that, but it's about who you've become through that process, the discipline, the organization, the planning, all these skills that you would have to have embodied into yourself to have achieved that physical attribute is more important than actually becoming that. Like it's than actually having the body. It's about what you've done to get the body. So it's about in the work that. So basically, if you say, here's what our business needs to become in the next 3 years or 5 years, great, to stay relevant, then who do we need to become as leaders? And we go, and then once again, the way the brain works, everyone wants to go, well, how are we going to do that? And I said, no, what must be accomplished? So when I'm working with people, I say, what must be accomplished to show we've become that? So what are the 6? I only allow people to pick 6 things. And, like an analogy I use, Steve, with people is, you tell me everything that you think you want to get accomplished this year or in 3 years' time, and I'll write it on a balloon, I'll blow it up, and I'll give it to you, and you bounce that. And if people give me all these things, I just keep blowing up balloons. Here you go, here you go, here you go. And all of a sudden, you got 20 balloons. So if I put 20 balloons in your room and said, Steve, you got to keep all these 20 balloons in the air, and they all had everything written on them, it gets to a stage where you would stop paying attention to what's written on them, and you would just try and do the nearest one you could do. You would just keep trying to bounce up in the air, right? But then what if, and like how many balloons do you think you could actually physically keep up in the air at a reasonable rate without looking like a madman and dropping? And I said, so if you look at what the 6 things that must happen to show you've become that, and I gave you 6 red balloons and said, here's 20 balloons, Steve, but you got to keep the 6 red ones. Don't care if the other ones drop, that's okay, but you got to keep the 6 red ones in the air. Do you think you could find a way to keep the 6 red ones in the air?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So your ability to focus then becomes increased. And this is what's important, because when you roll it into accountability, we actually achieve more by focusing on less. We try to do too many things at once. And, all the masculine jokes about, men, can't multitask and things, well, it's just human brain. There's only so many things we can focus on regardless, right? So from when you're setting your strategy for yourself and who you want to become, don't pick more than 6 core things. Well, pick who it is you need to become. And then what would be the no more than 6 things that you think would show you've become that, right? And then they're the objectives. They're the what's, not the how's, the what's. And then you want to know how you would measure that and go, okay, so here's the 6 things, and here's how I'd measure to show that I've accomplished that. And if I did that, say, in 3 years' time, I go, in the next 12 months, well, what must I accomplish in the next 12 months to be on track for that in 3 years?
Right. And then you break it down and go down from there into monthly and weekly for sure.
Well, yeah, then I go into quarterly and I go, okay, what are the 3 things every quarter, the 3 things this quarter that I need to focus on? Because even in life and business, Steve, can you tell me what's going to happen in the next 12 months?
No.
Can you tell me what's going to happen in the next 3 years?
I can't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. What are you kidding me?
Can you tell me what you would like to accomplish, though?
Yeah, I definitely can tell you what the vision is about what I believe will happen with what I want to create. And from the history of what's happened in my life, I can also give you a fair prediction about what I think is going to happen tomorrow or next week or next month. But again, as we all know, there's no guarantees. So you have to be flexible as well in the flow of what you're creating too.
Which is why I challenge anybody then, but if you've reverse engineered, if you know who you want to become in the next 3 years, or your business needs to become, and you go, here's what must be accomplished. Because what must be accomplished is mandatory. When we get there is arbitrary. It's just a wild ass guess. Like it's like if it takes 3 years, if it takes 42 months instead of 36, or you get there in 30, all I know is that these 6 things must be accomplished to show that I have become this. In the next 12 months-ish, these 6 things must be accomplished to know that I'm on track for that.
Right.
And in the next 90 days, I'm only going to pick 3 things that I'm going to focus on in these 90 days that matter most and work on those to move forward. And then I'm only going to worry about how I do the next 90 days.
Right.
Because I can see out that kind of far. I always liken it to walking into a fog. You ever been, you see the fog and you can see to the edge of the fog, right? So to me, that's kind of like the 90 days because it's a bit foggy after 90 days. But when you walk into that fog, Steve, what can you see in the fog?
Yeah, you have a clear crispness of beyond the fog, right?
Yeah, you can see further into the fog.
Right.
And so then, and that's kind of the concept I used to with people to help them understand. Like when you're walking where the fog is, that's kind of what I can see kind of clearly to there. But then as you walk into that fog, you can see further into the fog. So when you're thinking about who you want to become or your business needs to become, no more than 6 things. Keep the red balloons in the air. What do I need to do in 12? What are the red balloons in the next 12 months? And then in the next 90 days, there's only 3 of them I need to keep in the air. And I'll pick whichever the ones I think are most important in the next 90 days to move me forward, because then I'm going to worry about how I'm going to do 90 days, not how I'm going to do 3 years.
Right.
It's 3 years what, 12 months what, 90 days what, and 90 days how. Okay, because then we have this immense focus. And so the last thing I just share with them, so I have a process which I share with people, which is fast execution. So I studied why do some people and or businesses execute at a far greater rate than other people do. And it was quite funny. There was a few things that came into play, and then I just added one more letter in to make it fast. So it worked out as beautifully as an acronym, which is really great. So I love it when a plan comes together. But focus, right? So F is for focus. When you have an innate focus on what matters most. So as you're working forward in your life, and this is why if you've reverse engineered that, here's the 3 things that matter most. So I have an innate focus on what matters most. Then you need to have a system of accountability. Who's responsible for what, where, when, why, and how? So everybody knows who's responsible for what, all right? In your life and or business, because there could be other accountabilities in your life you have. And then S is for simple or simplicity. Create a simple plan, a step-by-step. What are the things I need to do in the next 90 days? Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5 to move forward. And then T is for transparency. Make sure everybody can see it. So there's no need to hide. So when you have focus, accountability, simplicity, and transparency, you'll execute at a far greater rate than you ever have in life and or business. And when I talk about transparency, if you share your goals with somebody who you trust, who can, so that will part of the accountability process, but you can't hide from. And if you're working on your health and well-being and you share that with Mary Lou and she knows that you're working on, and when she sees you sitting on your arse instead of going to yoga or doing your, going for your walk and doing whatever, she goes, Steve, hey, didn't you say that that this mattered to you? And because you've shared that with us, transparent to her, and she can see whether you're doing it or not doing it. Right?
And the key, even, yes, absolutely. And we actually do that every year. For the last 20 years, we have done our couple goals every year between Christmas and New Year's. And we agree upon where we are going to have joint couple goals in different categories. And then we ask permission if we want them to help us stay accountable to it or not, meaning a spouse. Because many of us know that have spouses or partners, sometimes that's a touchy territory to step into. But if you're asking them to be engaged in it and you're giving them permission to help you keep you accountable, and then you even have like a weekly or monthly lunch or a couple meeting that's kind of, doing it in a more a routine thing, for sure in a company, but in a family, it works really well too. So that accountability piece is crucial.
Yeah, 100%. Mate. So that's how I believe in deciding who you want to become. You know where you are. Who do you want to become then to stay relevant in your own life or with your family, whatever it is, or business? It's more about who do you need to become. So get very clear on that. So and that's to me is what your mission is. I think we've been doing mission wrong in organizations for many, many, many years. We put this up or when the way we did it doesn't serve us going forward, whether we did it wrong or not, up for debate. But the old mission statement's been up on the wall for 25 years. Our mission is to da 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 da. Well, I believe that mission is the next evolution of our business. So even in military terms, once the mission's complete, Steve, what happens after that mission?
On to the next mission.
There's another mission, right? So mission is just the next evolution of your business. So mission is what evolves us. So whilst our purpose is what there to engage, you have a clear sense of why you want to do what you need to do and get out of bed every day. You have your values, which are there to how you uniquely think about your purpose. You have a vision of the world that's really inspiring. Well, your mission then is, who do you need to become to start creating that world? And it's all about that becoming process. It's not about, the mission isn't to make $1 million. The mission is to become the organization that will stay relevant, and the profitability, the making the money is like oxygen to us as human beings. You need it to survive, but you weren't born just to breathe. Right? There's a greater sense of purpose to why you do what you do. And so who do you need to become? And then it's constantly this journey of becoming, individually and or as a business. And I think, if we understand it, then setting a 3-year mission for our business in today's uncertain world is pretty much a reasonable stretch. You want to plan out a 10-year mission, good for you, go for it. 5-year, I don't care. I challenge people just like the next 3 years. Because I think that that's a stretch in an uncertain world for me. If you want to find some certainty, understand who you need to become in this uncertain world. That'll be certain on who you need to become. Be certain on what what must be accomplished to show you've become that, and be certain on what you need to do, and then be certain on the next 90 days of what you're going to do about it. That's how you find certainty in the uncertainty. Whether that's in personal life and or business. I do the same process for my life as I do for the business.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, they're all interchangeable for sure. There's a great book, if some of the listeners or viewers here haven't read it, and it's by a guy named Gary Keller, called The One Thing. And Gary happens to be in the real estate space. He runs one of the largest real estate companies in the country with about 150,000 real estate agents and has gone global. But his book, The One Thing, talks about kind of your concept about the 6 in those 6 categories, because probably those 6 things that you're talking about, each one of those, or if we looked at that wheel of, if you looked at that wheel of life that I showed earlier, if you had a one thing in each of these categories that really kind of was, what would be the thing you could do the most in your spirituality or your financial or your relationships? What one thing? And then if those equated to that year, you're working on 6 things combined, but that then breaking it down into those key action items. And then a lot of people wonder, like, well, how do I know where to find that purpose or find that, what I need to do to become that thing? Dave, you were talking about becoming that person. If you're going to be this leader and you want the company to go to here, what is it you need to do? Well, typically, what type of leadership that takes, either because you've seen other companies or other individuals. It's a feeling that you have, and that feeling knows you want to be something different or more than you are. Maybe you have other mentors or guides or leaders in other industries or your same industry. They've given you some example about what other skills, talents, characters, qualities that you might have. But this is a very simple sheet for people to do just on a yellow pad, or, this is a worksheet. The stop, start, continue. So if you're trying to narrow down those 6 things and you go, okay, what do I need to stop doing that's just no longer working anymore? Whether it's, sleeping too late, late night eating, spending too much money on marketing, hiring the wrong staff without, whatever it is, what do you need to stop doing? And if you stop doing that, what would it do then to free up? What could you start doing that would be more beneficial? And in that category of, I'm going to start doing this, XYZ in your personal, your business, your marketing, your whatever, and then just continue. What is working right now in your business and life that is fluid, that is productive, that does make you feel good? So some of these simple exercises when you're trying to get accountable to, where do I start? And if I've got this, okay, I am here, I've got my 6 things or my 3 things or my 8 things, whatever you narrow it down to. And then if you're going to, break that away of a stop, start, continue, then those are some simple ways to do it. But I think you've used the concept of accountability in a few different ways. And I'm a big believer on anything that you can track and measure, you can improve upon. And I'm not the first one to have shared that quote. I don't remember who originally did, but I've used it a billion times. But it's just so true. It's just so relevant. I don't care if it's about sports, finances, politics, the stock market, your weight, your relationship, whatever it might be, anything that you can track and measure, you can improve upon. So it's like, if you've got the starting point here and you want to be this type of a company, or you want to be this type of an individual, or create this kind of a feeling with your customers or the public, and the reason I think many people do use profit is because it seems to be the most obvious that, the profits are this and the profits are that, but you don't typically get to a sustainable, purpose-driven, profit-driven business without doing many of the things you and I are talking about, that it's sustainable, that profit is one measuring stick. and then customer satisfaction, employee, values. I have one of my clients who's in the mortgage business, and his goal was to get to $100 million in profit so he could donate $50 million over a period of time to charitable organizations. And he's been in business 10 years and he's in the mortgage industry. And this last year, because the refi market has been going through the roof, they've made more money in the last 18 months than they've made in the last 6 years combined. And they just wrote a check to their foundation to be dispersed out for $50 million. So his measuring stick was, I want to get here so I can create enough wealth to do this. And along the way, he was still doing, they've been building schools in different parts of the country, of the United States, and globally. So it's the stuff you're talking about these measurable, what do I want to be? And it's the journey. It's not the final outcome, but there's a reason there are business plans. There is a reason there's tracking and measurability. There's a reason that there's accountability coaches, et cetera. So I think that all dovetails into then also creating more passion and purpose too, and power.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. But in that situation, Steve, what his objective was to have massive philanthropic donations, for example, or whatever it was. That's the objective. How would we measure that? Would we look at the number of things that we, charities or causes that we support, the value of the donations to those things? So if you look at his objective was that, and then no objective can work in isolation. So we would have, well, what kind of business, in terms for us to become the business that we want to be? Well, okay, then what type of financial performance would our business need to have? Well, it would need to do $100 million in profitability. It would need to do this, or you'd have to pick the three things or the ingredients that would create $100 million in profitability. We need to have, $500 million in sales with a NP margin of 20%, and those are the metrics that we would use to have a thriving business. Okay, great. And one of our other objectives that we must have, so we have to have a thriving business, we must have philanthropic success, and that's measured by these things. And what else must we have to become the business we want to become? The mission of the business wasn't to make $100 million in profit. The mission of the business was not to generate $50 million in philanthropic donations. The mission of the business was to become whatever it needed to become. And those were the core objectives that would show we have become that business. And this is where, we need to rethink how we do strategy, especially in the way the world is today. If we keep thinking about strategy the same way we've thought about it in our life and or our business, the same way we've thought about it for the past 100 years, in a very uncertain world as things are moving, when shifts in generations where then, the Gen Zs, the Gen Ys, the whatever they are these days, don't care about how much money you make. What they care about is how much impact are you making? What difference are we making in the world here? Well, you're not going to have a workforce in the future if you're thinking about how much money are we only going to make, because people are not going to be attracted to that. And there's nothing, I'm not saying that we don't need to make money. We need to make money. It's a fuel for the engine, right? And a lot of people tell you, use a car as the analogy. So it's the fuel for the engine. But, your business is the car is designed to take you somewhere. It's not about making fuel or getting fuel.
Right, exactly.
You're not driving just to get fuel. You're driving to get somewhere, and along the way, you need fuel to keep you moving towards where you want to go.
That's correct. Absolutely. And along the way of not having that be the end result, like on this example of this client, he didn't wait till he made $100 million in profit to give away $50 million. Along the way, he was saying, I'm going to do it now. Like, I'm going to give away $50. Right. I'm going to give away $100. Right. I'm going to give away $1,000. So let's also remember, as your story here as well, about the journey. It's what we may not have tomorrow. I mean, we literally may not have tomorrow. I had a client on the phone yesterday, and one of his high school buddies, who is same age of him, 58 years old, in reasonably good health, lives in Los Angeles, died of COVID last week. And was out, had all kinds of plans for this year, building big companies, et cetera. And he's not on the planet today doing his work. We do not know when this journey is going to be ending for us. So I keep reminding myself on my journey that today, what can I do today in giving back, in contributing and being of service, that if it looked like I had $100 million company and I was going to do this, why not do it with $1 versus 50 million? So whatever your good is, start where you are now. Just like we were saying, if you're in the Disneyland or the mall, you are here. Well, what can you do now today that is generating good with the type of goodwill that you want to do with your product, your service, your business, your metrics, your profit, whatever, that allow you to experience samples and examples, even if they seem like small ripples, that could potentially magnify, which is exactly what this client did. I mean, he when he wrote, he was like, I cannot, he thought it was going to take him 25 years to get to that point. And that was his mission, his goal, 25 years. He did it in 10. So you just never know. And sometimes it may not happen. He may have been on his 25th year and not finished his journey, but hey, look at all the great that product, that service, those customers, those things did along the way. So that's making the impact.
And I think that what you're touching there is one of the most important things of this whole moving forward. And once you realize, here's where I am, here's where I want to be. It's how do I bring this into reality? How do I start becoming the person that I need to become? I'm just going to not remove you from the stream altogether, but I just want to do a visual here.
Sure.
So I'm going to take the whole screen for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now my left to rights here. Okay, so if I'm over here and that this is who I am today, okay. And then I realized, so if I work at, well, who do I want to become in 3 years' time to have the, life and business and everything that I want to have? And I worked out, okay, well, this is who I would need to become. All right. So this, if I need to become this person who is capable of donating $50 million to charitable causes, right? So using your client as an example, and that's who that's the type of person or organization I need to have, and the leader I would need to be to do that. So if I go back to where I am today then and go, okay, well, based on today, if I was that person, if I was there in 3 years from now or 5 years from now, whatever it was, and I was that person, how would that person think and act? All right. And they go, well, they would think like this, they would act like this, they would be making these donations, they would be doing that. And I go, okay, what of that could I start doing today? What of that could I start actually doing today? And they say, well, I could start making donations today, but what I could donate is $10 or $50, not $50 million. And so all I have to do is, how would that person think and act in 3 years from now? And what of that could I start doing today? So what we do is we're starting to act as if we're already that person and bringing that person into reality, rather than saying, when I get there, I'll start making those donations. No, you're only going to get there by starting to act as if you're that person today. And that person would be making donations at whatever value that they could. And if they made $100 in profit and they said, well, I'm going to donate 50 because I donate 50% of my profits. Well, I could start donating that 50% of my profits right now. And that is how you start to bring it into reality. We start to act as if we're already that person. And this is a really important part. If you guys want to bring, like this, we talk about the law of attraction. You can say, I want to attract all this thing. Well, then you take action on that to say, if that's where it is in 3 years, well, what of that could I start doing right now? And Fran, who's been watching this, and Fran's one of the most amazing human beings you'll ever meet, by the way.
Hi, Fran.
Thank you for being Fran. In order to have, who do I need to be? Correct. And so here's the interesting thing, and I use this, it's so simple, right? So if I want to have something, well, then who would I need to be to have that, right? Because it would be fair to say I'm not that person right now, or I'd already have that. And so if I work out, well, then who do I need to be? And if you look at the words be and have, guess what it spells? Behave. All I have to do is think, how would that person behave? Now, the only thing I need to know underneath that is then what thinking would drive that behavior, which would get me the things I want to have by becoming who I need to be. And then once again, so if I think and act as if I'm already that person, and in this space today, if I've identified who that is, and I go, well, this person would think and act like that, and I go, what of that could I do today? Well, today I could donate $50 and start doing that. And that's how you'll become that.
Right. And if it's not about the money, if it's sometimes you don't have the cash because your business isn't profitable, then maybe it's the time. Sometimes the contribution of time is even more valuable than the check that you stoke. I got involved.
A lot of organizations will tell you that, like, we appreciate all the work, but what we need is
commitment. Exactly. Your skill, whatever your service is, your talent, provide that at a free or discounted cost to something in your community, something your heart is fond about. Because what I have found about entrepreneurs, corporate executives, myself included, as I've gone through the path, is I'm like, oh, I'm going to do that when I'm not so busy. I'm going to do that when I'm at this level. And we think we're going to be this thing of giving back at a bigger level when we get to, quote, retirement, or we get to a certain income level, or we get to a certain profit or business. And I'm here to remind myself daily, and to also help remind my clients when I can, again, like you just said, Dave, start now, start today, start in some fashion of making a contribution. It makes a difference. You were talking about
but that's your start, stop, and continue thing, like that, like such a simple tool, but it's so powerful. But if you can identify who you need to be first and say, okay, based on that, what would I need to stop doing of what I'm doing today? What would I need to start doing that person would do? What am I already doing that person would do?
Right.
And then, it just, the alignment of that to when you get very clear on who you need to become to have all the things you want to have in your life or whatever it is. And then that helps you identify the behaviors. And then behind that, you go, well, how would that person, what thinking then would drive this new behavior? Because you
Right.
can't keep thinking the same way you think today and expect to get new results, because that's insanity.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, especially doing the same thing over and over is insanity, but it's because we haven't shifted our thinking, which is why, once again, if you want to move forward with power, passion, and purpose into the thing, you can't think the same way you currently think. What is the, who do I need to, what's the next evolution of my thought process that I need to have that will drive those new results that I'm looking for?
Right, exactly. Well, you're using the word be and behavior, and it just reminded me again of my 4Bs. So I think I'll flow into that, because you're absolutely right. Once you know where it is that all the stuff you just said, and where is this place I'm going to start. One of the things, I don't know if you can see my screen or not.
Yeah, I'll put it up now. Yeah. It's there.
Okay, so this is, we were talking about the P's, the power of the P's, whether it's productivity or power or purpose. And this is the 4Bs, which I use myself, that I started using before I ever started using this with clients. And this is, and you could get this on my website. It's on steverogers.net. And you can just go to where it says Iggy Moments, and you can download this, anybody that might want to get it. But it basically has this form here, which is body, being, bonds, and business. And it's a daily scorecard. And then there's a blank one here, so you can download a blank one. But this blog article talks about how that works. But it's all about this thing you're talking about, accountability. So the body is your physical health, your being is the spiritual health, your bonds is your health with your relationships, and then your business, of course, is what we're talking about here in many fashions, is your financial health and your abundance in your workplace. So what I do with this form is I've got this on a Google sheet that I can do it right on my iPhone. I've got it on a whiteboard in my office. But every day, and my business coach, Brian Tracy, used to, he talks about this in his books, and it's a very simple analogy, but it's like he lives in San Diego. So he was saying, when you leave San Diego on a plane on the way to New York, luckily you have autopilot, because it course corrects 99% of the way. It just keeps course correcting until it gets to where it wants to go. Well, for me, tracking and measuring things weekly or monthly or quarterly sometimes was not enough. And as I was trying to go through massive change in health or fitness, or in starting my new business 5 years ago, I had to do it daily. So every day I'm just trying to get to 1 point. I half a point for eating healthy in the plan I want, and then I get a half a point for working out and exercise. My being is my relationship with God or higher power. So there's 2 categories in here, prayer and meditation. I got another half a point for being of service in that day regarding a spiritual influence. Bonds, half a point for doing something internally with my family of a positive nature. Bonds, another half a point externally with somebody outside of my family. And then biz, working on my business and working in my business. And each person can make up whatever their categories are, but I recommend just having 2 for each of these categories, or even just one thing. But at the end of the day, I'm just trying to get to 4 points. Some days I get to 3.5, some days I get to 3. And at the end of the week, at the bottom here, if I got to 28 points, which I think I've only hit twice in the last 4 years, I usually am 25, 26.5, 27, 23 sometimes. But if I'm getting zeros or goose eggs in my body or my beings, I know that something's going to start giving. I know that something's going to start materializing that I don't want to have happen. And so then I just start fresh every week. It's another week. I start over and it's another day. So this tracking and measuring and accountability of body, being, bonds, business flows perfectly into what you're talking about knowing where you are, tracking it, having a vision about who you want to be and who you want to become, and then taking little baby steps each day to make sure you are getting there.
Yeah, because in the end, it's about like this whole thing about, moving forward. Let me just bring that back up. That's back up here. Like that's such a simple, once again, simple, powerful tool that most people probably won't use because, they're afraid to actually hold themselves to account. I have actually in my planner, I've just got it's an old leave calendar, and so in there I've written all the things I want to do, and then each week I just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I do the same thing. I just tell how many times did I demonstrate the behavior? Did I demonstrate that behavior each day, and then give myself a score at the bottom for the whole week. Right. And then I've got the areas that there's a whole bunch of areas that I'm actually tracking on, because actually, I guess for me, everything, I'm not sure if we talked about this before, but I set a theme for myself every year of my own evolution. Do you talk about that one thing? So every year I've set a one thing in terms of the theme, the all-encompassing theme for my year in terms of my own evolution to become who I need to be, to have the business we need to have, and everything like that. So this year is discipline. So 3 years ago, it was being steadfast. So it was staying true to who I am and what I'm working on and everything like that, which was the beginning of the business the way it is today. And then last year was consolidate. So taking everything that I learned and keep going forward with everything I was working on. And then last year was about consolidating. So it's getting stronger and tighter. And which is why now I have the Next 90 Business Evolution process, the Business Evolution Summit, the Evolution of Business podcast, is I consolidated everything into this concept of, I really think that growth mindset is what's been is one of the biggest, most dangerous things in the world today. But evolution, unless it's on the back of evolution. So I've consolidated everything into this concept of evolution. And then this year I said, okay, so now I've been steadfast, I've consolidated. This year is now all about discipline. So it's about discipline in every area of my life, right? So it's about, my fitness, my relationships, the business itself, the work, the team, everything I do. So it's all in that one encompassing theme of discipline. And so I've written down all the things from my life that I need to be disciplined in. Right. And then now I track that and see, and it's, and it's kind of like some days I vote yes for it and some days I vote no.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It says, like, because I don't beat myself up if I had a bad day or a bad week.
Right.
But if I have a bad week, a bad week, a bad week, a bad week, that's when there's a problem. But if every now and again, because the thing is like, oh, there I go again. Look, it's just like me not to stick to what I said I'd do. All these thoughts but the person I need to become wouldn't think like that. What they would think like is, shoot, I missed it this week. I voted no for it, or voted no for it today. Tomorrow, I'm voting yes.
Yeah, and then the same question, with, in addition to what you just said, is, and what can I learn from this?
Yep.
And what am I gaining from this that's causing me to keep doing that? Because we all have choice. I mean, the power of choice is powerful. Every day we get to choose all the stuff you just said, and you can either choose what we ourselves determine to be, quote, a positive behavior, or what we choose to maybe perceive as not such a positive behavior. Either of those behaviors, we're getting some reward from some fashion or another. It may not be the reward that we think we want, but we keep doing it, so there's still some reward. So it's kind of really digging into that, and then figuring out, if you don't understand why that is, having some type of an accountability partner is key, whether it is a coach or an accountability partner or a vision partner, or someone who you trust, who also is willing to evolve, that you have a weekly call, a daily call, a monthly call with a coach or a one-on-one vision partner, and that they are calling bullshit on bullshit, and they're helping you maybe see or point out things to you on your plan that you share with them. Because I find that, like you said earlier, in sharing your plan transparently with in a transparent way with your team, your executives, or in your own life, your partner or a trusted advisor absolutely can make the difference of accelerating that transformation. That's but what I have found is that my acceleration of transformation has always been when I've had someone else helping me get there. And so, I make sure that I know there's a lot more people that are smarter, wiser, funnier, and sometimes more committed than I am to my own success on certain days. So
is that why I'm here?
Absolutely.
Smarter, funnier.
I would say all those things check off, don't they? Check.
Yeah, no, it's not harder to find someone smarter, funny. Well, maybe not funnier, smarter, wiser than me. But I agree. You need to surround yourself with those people. And my wife she's smarter, funnier, wiser. Which is probably why we manifest those people into our lives.
Yes. The law of attraction. The law of attraction.
Yeah. And I think that's really important. And so as we're getting close to wrapping up this 3 sessions, I guess for me, from a summary, about moving forward with power, passion, and purpose into 2021, I look at that as moving forward. It's all about action. It's about what we're going to do, not what we say we're going to do. It's actually the stuff that we actually do. And you know what? And you're not going to learn anything. I would say you learn. So I can't coach somebody when they're in action. Only can coach them when they're in action. So when you're in action, it means you're not doing anything. But when you're in action, you're doing something. It can only help you when you actually do go out and learn and have a go at something, because that's how you're going to learn, right? So this whole sense of moving forward. And power, and I know you and I have talked about this, and we'll get your take on it. But for me, it's certainly, where does my inner strength come from? And, that for me is that whether it's the universe, I'm a pragmatic spiritualist in that sense. So I do have a spiritual energy. I know that. And so channeling that, and my power comes from me doing my meditation, doing my mantras every day, my affirmations, or whatever it is you want to do. But that's where I channel that power from. I pull that into me and express it back out. That's where my power comes. Passion is all about my ability to endure suffering. Passion is about suffering, right? Passion of the Christ. So to me, it's my endurance. So it's my resilience. It's all those things. But those are learned over time, unless I have a go of stuff and then pick myself back up, or have other people who are willing to help pick me up. And then purpose is just a problem I'm passionate about solving in the world. So that whole sense of passion crossing my passion, then, whichever that is, and crossing with other people's problems, that's the being of service part. So I've got my inner strength, I've got my passion in terms of what I'm really passionate about, and then I see the problem that I would like to solve in this world, which is my ability to be of service. And then I take all that and start becoming who I need to become to make that happen in the world. And that is the formula for me about moving forward into 2021.
Yeah. Well, and that's why we're so aligned. I think that's a phenomenal summary. So I don't need to do anything to add to that. Your response is very similar and key to mine. So I don't need to be redundant for our audience. But ditto, kudos, I agree. And on the power thing, I'd probably just add, if any of you are stuck at any point on all the stuff we just said, I would ask to look in one other bucket, and that is in tapping into power. Sometimes there's an unforgotten reservoir of the power of forgiveness. And the power of forgiveness inside of the people that are in your circle or outside of your circle in life. I find that a lot of times there's this unhidden power that's holding us back from our passion and our power.
Yeah.
Because there's a family member, a friend, an associate, someone who's done us wrong in the past, or maybe just society in general. But finding a way to identify if there's anyone that needs to be asked for forgiveness from yourself, or that you need to forgive. Because in doing that, boom, it unlocks this whole other reservoir that taps into this power, this passion, this purpose, and you might get a message that you just didn't anticipate in doing so. So I would just add that in the mix and encourage everyone to continue to define and to explore and to transform and evolve into your own higher purpose and passions, because we need a lot more of that in the world right now. So we hope that the sessions that Dave and I have done for all of you will be of some value, and that there's a contribution to help unlock some of your own brilliance and talent that'll come back our way, that we will spread with the world as well. So thank you for listening in.
Yeah, thank you guys. And thanks again, Steve, for creating this opportunity. And to all the people who've been listening and watching over the past 3 sessions, thank you so much. And Big Al, he's always been there, Fran, today. There's a whole bunch of people in the past sessions. So thank you guys so much. And if there's any, once again, you and I know, if anyone has any comments afterwards, put them in the at the bottom. Steve and I will respond personally if anything amazing. Thank you, Fran. Just put up there. Thank you so much, Fran. Like I said, Fran's one of the most amazing human beings you'll ever meet. So thank you so much for tuning in, Fran. Anyway, but we must fly. Thanks, Steve, again for everything, buddy. And we look forward to maybe doing something again in the near future.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Yeah.